the hospital last night, and so I just want to pray that God would touch her. Luke chapter number 8 and verse 43. I want to preach for a few minutes today. Is that all right? And the church said amen. And a woman, verse 43, and a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which has spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any. You need to understand maybe the distress of this woman. She is under the curse of a Levitical law. If you go back and look in the book of Leviticus, you would understand and you would see the stringencies of that curse. She has been separated from her family. She's been separated from her friends. She has been separated from society in general for 12 years. She was unclean. Everyone that touched her would be considered unclean. Everyone that came into her house would be unclean. And everything that she touched would be unclean. That would give you a lot of friends. Can you imagine how hopeless she felt? How she felt like, this is it. I'm at the end of my rope. Unable to work. Spent every dime she had. Actually, the Bible says she spent her living. So I think that's even more than money. She gave everything she had to the best of the best. And she got worse. She no doubt felt like she's going to have a nervous breakdown, a physical breakdown, an emotional breakdown. Have you ever just had enough on you that you secretly said, okay, God, no more. I'm at my limit. Afflict somebody else. My calendar is full of affliction. Verse 44 says, she came behind Jesus and touched the border of his garment. And immediately, everything changed. And Jesus said, who touched me? And when all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? You got everybody around you. How can you ask who's touched you? There's no way to tell who has touched you. And Jesus said, no, somebody has touched me. Now there is a big difference between touching the Lord and touching the Lord. Now some of you are going to touch him today, but somebody's going to touch him today. Some of you are going to do it just because the crowd is doing it. Some of you are going to clap just because everybody else is clapping. And some of you are going to stand because everybody else is standing. But somebody's going to say, I can't take this anymore. I'm about to have a breakdown. I cannot handle this anymore. And you're going to really touch it. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, hey, once you touch him, don't try to hide. She came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him. Now you got to understand, technically, by touching him, he's about to become unclean. But when you touch Jesus, he doesn't become like you. When you touch Jesus, you become like him. I don't care what your hang up is today. You don't have to worry about contaminating the Lord. When you touch him, his holiness is going to flow through you and it's going to change your life. And he said unto her, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. In verse 43, she's on the brink of a breakdown. At the end of verse 48, she's going home back to her family after 12 years. Mama's coming home after 12 years. I want to preach to you today on this thought, the alternative to a breakdown. The alternative to a breakdown. If you're going to help me preach, shout amen. God bless you. You may be seated. The very first apostolic church that I ever was a part of was an independent church, and by that I mean it was part of no standing organization. It was a good church. It was pastored by a great man. His name was Malcolm Jean. He has recently died. But Malcolm Jean put a love of preaching into me as just a little kid. I would sit on that front row and I would watch him and I would listen to him pray. And this was back in the old school days where when we sang songs, everybody that was a saint left the pew and came and stood on the platform. Does anybody remember services like that? Okay, a couple of you. That was the old school days. And so if you were a guest or a sinner, you just stayed in the pew. And we sang to you to let you know you can't be up here. And it was just, that was church to me. And I would watch him, how he would wrap his handkerchief around his microphone and how he'd wipe his sweat. And as a kid, I promise you, it's like a 5-year-old kid, I'd go home and I'd get in the bathroom and I'd take a hairbrush and I'd take toilet paper, and that was my handkerchief, and I'd wrap it around that hairbrush, and I would preach in that hairbrush. I've baptized more roaches than you could. Amen. You've heard of the Roach Motel? I had the Roach Church. It was a beautiful thing. Now, my mom and dad, we would go to church, but we weren't really in church. And so I don't even know if they caught on to what was going on, but it was, when I say independent church, I also mean that it was a rather strict church. We would not play any games that would have dice in it. You'd have to have a spinner. I'm not making fun of that. There was reasons for that. I get that. We couldn't play any card games. So I'm saying that to say this. I'm about to have an opening illustration of a sermon that would go against Brother Malcolm Jean, and I had to wait till he passed away so I could preach it. But life has often been compared to like a card game. And the thought is, the better the hand you're dealt, the better you can play the game of life. In other words, if you have all the right breaks at all the right times, if you get all the luck to come your way, then maybe you can be a success. However, if you don't have the right cards, and if you don't have the right breaks, and if you don't have that good of a hand in life, then you're probably doomed to mediocrity at best and failure at worst. But there's more to life than just having a good hand or being in the right place at the right time. Life is not simply holding a good hand. Real life is playing a poor hand well. Because the reality is this: there are only a few people who had everything work out the way it was supposed to work out for them. There are only a few people who have always been at the right place at the right time. There's only a few people who have inherited their successes. But the best stories are the ones where the person was an underdog, where they didn't have a chance in the world, where there were more people against them than there was for them. And yet somehow, someway, through every disappointment, through every valley, through every dark night, through every circumstance, they still found a way to climb out and come out on top and do what everybody else said was impossible. There are some real success stories. I had a young preacher come up to me and make a smart aleck comment to me this week at General Conference. And Brother Arnold said, that's why I don't go. And I get it. And the Holy Ghost had to grip me because I was about to lie into him. I had something to say to him. And I was going to, well, I won't even tell you what I was going to tell him. But not all of us had the privilege of being born into the right family. But there are some real success stories. Let me give you a prime example. His name is Roger Crawford. He's probably right around or a little over 50 years old. He makes his living as a consultant and as a public speaker. He's not a preacher. He just makes his living as a public speaker. He's written a couple of different books. He travels all across the country working with Fortune 500 companies, school districts, as a motivational speaker. Those are pretty good credentials. He makes a pretty good living out of doing that, but it gets better. Before becoming a consultant, he was a varsity tennis player for his university. Later, he became a professional tennis player, certified by the Professional Tennis Association. And the only thing that can really put this story into its correct perspective is to tell you, as Paul Harvey would, the rest of the story.
All right.
Roger Crawford has no hands and only 1 foot.
Oh my God.
Now, I know some of you don't believe me, and that's fine. But let me explain something to you about preachers. We don't lie. And I know some of you won't even wait till you get home. You'll act like you're looking at your Bible app on your phone, but right now you're going to Google. Roger Crawford. His tennis racket, he has a little pointed nub. And his tennis racket, I hear, there's a tennis player back there. I hear him getting with me. Michael back there. He's got his little tennis racket where his nub fits into the hole of a tennis racket. And so he has a leg that he puts on, but he has no hands and 1 foot. And he was a tennis player. He was a professional tennis player. He's a motivational speaker, severely handicapped at birth, but totally refusing to allow his handicap to handicap him. At some point in Roger's life, he probably felt like having a breakdown.
All right.
But he decided that life is more than having a good hand. Or in Roger's case, any hand. Life is about playing a bad hand well. And I got a feeling that there are some people in this church house today, and you could have backslid, and you could have quit, and you could be bitter, and you could have an attitude, and you could hate God and the church, but somehow you made up your mind, though He slay me, yet will I trust Him, and I will serve Him, and I will love Him. I'm preaching to people this morning, and you wasn't born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and it hasn't always been easy, but somehow you made up your mind, I'm not going to quit, and I'm not going to be a victim. My God, we've got enough victims in this world already. We don't need any more victims. We need some victors. We need some people who are made more than conquerors. So I'm sorry that it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but pull yourself up by your own shoestrings and get a hold of this thing and let God restore something about it.
Amen. Amen.
Somebody clap your hands and give Him praise.
That's right, Brother Cody.
It's a beautiful thing to see a mom and a dad. And it's going to be a little bit of a reprimand to some, but it's a beautiful thing to see a mom and dad who just buried their son yesterday, standing on their feet worshiping God, while some of us are worried about things much less petty, and yet we can't find ourselves to be able. I know the Bible says we shouldn't judge ourselves among ourselves, but let me tell you something. We're going to have to stand in eternity against giants of the faith that went through hell and still loved God, and yet we had one little incident and we got all bitter and jacked up and messed up. I rebuke that spirit in the name of the Lord. You don't have to have a breakdown.
Amen.
I know it's not perfect, but you don't have to live like this.
That's right.
And I know there would be people in the church that would say, well, Pastor, you don't understand. And I probably don't understand. But you'd have the mentality that, well, just as soon as things get better, then I promise you, promise you, as soon as I get out of this funk, then I'm going to really live for God. And just as soon as the sun starts shining, I'm going to start worshiping. And just as soon as I can get this one little thing paid off and that one other deal come through, then I'll be able to support the church like I need to financially. But I've come to tell you, it doesn't work like that in the kingdom of God. You got to make up your mind right now, I'm going to live for God regardless of what's happening on the left or the right. So instead of waiting for it to get better, go ahead and say, this is a day the Lord has made. I will. And when you begin to worship, it's going to get better when you get in the presence of the Lord. I've come to preach to somebody today. Quit crying about your situation. Quit blaming everybody else for your situation. Get off the sidelines, regardless of what your issue is, regardless of your handicap. Don't let it destroy your relationship with God.
Amen.
Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I'm going to get up. Some of you need to do what Jesus said. You need to quit waiting on things to get better. You need to quit waiting on somebody to feel sorry for you. You need to quit waiting on a handout. And you just need to get up and seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and God will take care of it. Somebody said amen. The point I want to make is that the reality is this. None of us have had the perfect environment. And so either we can make the best of a bad situation, or we can live the rest of our life with regret. People who are full of regret and remorse never tap into what God has for them because they're too busy revisiting all the missed opportunities of the past. I don't know who I've come to preach to, but I did feel like the Lord quickened something in my spirit. He told me to tell somebody, and I don't say that lightly, but He told me to tell somebody, get up, get over it, and get on with it. Get up, get over it, and get on with it. We do not have time to build castles dedicated to our past mistakes. We got to get busy building monuments that are dedicated to a better, brighter, and a more beautiful future. Yes, we have sinned, and yes, we have made mistakes, and yes, we've done stupid stuff, but God's grace is renewed and mercy is renewed every single day. Somebody needs to make up their mind right now. You will get up. You will get over. And you will get on. You don't have to live with regret. You don't have to live with shame. You don't have to live with failure. And I know a lot of you are way too spiritual for me. I get that. You eat bagels with Jesus. I get that. I won't even go down that road right now. There's a lot of people too spiritual for me, so I'm not even going to mess with you. But for the few of you who are willing to be honest, you know good and well that the devil would love to keep you buried, to keep you hid, to keep you tied to your past, so that you'll never be able to tap into the potential of your future. But you also know that that devil is a liar. It's time to get up. It's time to get over it. It's time to get on with it. My God, I feel a getting up spirit in this place right now. The devil didn't think some of you would ever get up, but I feel a getting up spirit right now. Some of you didn't think you'd ever rebound from that divorce, but I feel a getting up spirit right now. You didn't think you'd ever be able to get out of that situation, but I feel a getting up spirit right now. You ought to turn around and give somebody a high five and say, it's time to get up. It's time to get up. It's time to get up. It's time to get on with it. It's time to get over with it. The devil's had me in part long enough. He's distracted me long enough. He's made fun of me long enough. I'm getting up. I think you'll enjoy this. It makes it kind of, spells it out pretty plain. It's called The City of Regret. Said, I had not really planned to take a trip this year, yet I found myself packing anyway. And off I went, dreading it. It was another guilt trip. I booked my reservation on Wish I Had Airlines. I didn't check my bags. Everyone carries their baggage on this airline. I had to drag it for what seemed like miles in Regret City Airport. I could see that people from all over the world were there with me, limping along under the weight of bags they had packed themselves. I caught a cab to Last Resort Hotel. The driver taking the whole trip backward, looking over his shoulder. There I found the ballroom where my event would be held, the annual pity party. As I checked in, I saw that all my old colleagues were on the guest list. There was the Dunn family, woulda, coulda, and shoulda. Both of the opportunities were there, missed and lost. All the yesterdays were there. There were too many to count, but all had sad stories to share. Shattered dreams and broken promises would be there too, along with their friends. Don't blame me, and couldn't help it. And of course, hours and hours of entertainment will be provided by the renowned storyteller. It's their fault. As I prepared to settle in for a really long night, I realized that only one person had the power to send all of those people home and break up the party. And that one person was me. All I had to do was return to the present and welcome a new day. There are too many of us who have become full-time residents in Regret City. But I've come to tell you, with the help of the Lord, we're going to change a few addresses this morning. Either you can look at all the bad that's happened and you can brag about it and allow it to give you a nervous breakdown, or you can look and thank God that you're still here. I don't know what you're going to do, but I thank God that I'm still here. And I'm still able to worship. And I'm still able to pray. And I'm still able to enjoy life. It may not be perfect, and I may have some cuts and scrapes and bruises, but I'm still here. Somebody ought to clap your hands that you're still here. You ought to clap and thank God that you're still here. All of us ought to join the deaf ministry for a little bit and just do this. And thank God we're still here. We may not be healed, but we're here. We may not be fixed, but we're here. We may not have our family here, but we're here. Come on, we got too many good Christians that's on the brink of a breakdown. And I rebuke that in the name of Jesus Christ. It is not God's will for depression to paralyze us. It's not God's will for anxiety to paralyze us. It's not God's will for prescription drugs to crush us. The only reason, you may say the only reason why people drink alcohol, I won't say the only reason, but a lot of the big reason why people become alcoholics is because they're trying to drown something. They get on drugs because they don't want to deal with reality. They get hooked to prescription drugs because it takes away some pain and it prevents them from having a breakdown. Too many good Christian people on the verge of a breakdown. And I'm afraid too many of them don't even know there is an alternative. It's been reported that 26% of adult Americans, 26% of adult Americans are on the verge of a serious nervous breakdown. That's 1 out of every 4 people. So if we have 100 people, that means 25 are on the verge of a breakdown.
Not me.
I'm not making light of that. I'm not making light of that. That's a serious issue. But there's an alternative. Webster gives the term breakdown some interesting definitions. The action or result of breaking. A failure to function. A failure to progress. A physical, mental, or nervous collapse. The nursery rhyme goes like this. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. There are too many people in our city. And to be frank, there's too many people in our churches whose name could very easily fit in this nursery rhyme. Brother so-and-so sat on the wall. Sister so-and-so had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put brother and sister so-and-so back together again. Some of you are here this morning, you feel like you're going to fall apart. You feel like you can't take it another day. If that phone rings one more time, you're going to scream. If you get one more message, if one more thing that can go wrong goes wrong, if one more situation arises, it's got you to your snapping point. Some of you are here and you feel like you've already fallen apart. You feel like that it's too late for you to hear a message like this. You needed this 3 weeks ago. But I want to tell you this morning that you've already figured it out. But the alternative to a breakdown is to allow God to give you a breakthrough. And if you've already fallen, and if you're experiencing no progression, and if you feel like you're about to collapse, that's bad. That's the bad news. But the good news is you don't have to deal with the king's horses, and you don't have to deal with the king's men. David said, some trust in horses and some trust in chariots, but we will put our trust in the name of the Lord. I'm happy to tell you today, if you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world, let me introduce you to a man named Jesus that said, cast all your cares upon Him and He will care for you. If you feel like you're broken today, let me introduce you to the great potter that can begin to put your life back together again. You don't have to have a breakdown. God can give you a breakthrough. So I've come to preach to you this morning. Either you can break down or you can break through. Either you can whine or you can worship. Either you can pout or you can shout. You can either gripe or you can grow. Where are the breakthrough people at today? Are there any breakthrough people in this house? I wish you would identify yourself by standing to your feet and giving the Lord a hand clap of praise. Lay aside every weight. You can do this. You can do this. I just feel like encouraging somebody today. You can do this. You can do this. Greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world. You can do this. You don't have to break down. You can break through.
Amen.
Somebody shout amen. You see the Clayton, it's good to see you. See you and your soon-to-be bride in the house of the Lord. If y'all want to, we can just marry you after service and get it over with. Don't charge you half price, but that's fine. No matter how dark a person's past is, it does not need to cast a shadow of fear, failure, or frustration over their present. I want you to notice the word break down. Not only does it signify that there's going to be a break, it also lets you know the direction of the break. Down. The enemy not only wants to break you, but the enemy wants to pull you down. I've never heard anybody testify that would say something like this: the devil picked me up. But it's always something like he pushed me down, he knocked me down, he depressed me, he weighted me down, he burdened me down. In biblical times, Egypt always represented the world and sin. And never do you read in your Bible where the people went up to Egypt. They always went down to Egypt. The Bible talks about going down to the wilderness, going down to the grave, going down to hell. It teaches a principle that down is in reference to the devil. This is going to get real deep today, okay? So what's the opposite of down? Maybe before you can have a breakthrough, if you're suffering a breakdown, is you might need to have first a break up.
All right.
Now our teenagers don't like those words, break up, because that means, listen, I saw my daughter this week at General Conference, and I just reminded her again, if you'll break up with him right now. He was listening on the phone, and I just whispered to her, I said, just break up with him right now. And I even told her, I said, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. I'll break up for you. I would personally enjoy doing that. That would be fun for me. It's just not God's will. Just don't feel like it's working out. We're going in a different direction. We're not picking up your options. Blah, blah, blah. Before you can have a breakthrough, there's a good chance you might need to have a breakup. And the reason why some of you will never break through is because there's some things you're connected to that you never want to break up. You keep hanging on to it, it's going to break you down. You keep hanging on to drugs and alcohol, it's going to break you down. You keep hanging on to adultery and fornication, it's going to break you down. Let me preach a little bit. You hang on to pornography, it's going to break you down. You keep lying and gossiping, it's going to break you down. You let Hollywood get connected with all that, it's going to break you down. But if you'll break up with it, God says, I'll give you a breakthrough. Look at your neighbor and say, is there anything you need to break up with today? Somebody shout up. That's why when a potter is working with a piece of clay, he never molds that clay by pressing down on it. He always forms it by pulling up on it. That's why the Bible says, look up. Your redemption draweth nigh. That's why the Bible says, lift up your head, O ye gates, and the King of glory shall come in. That's why Jesus said, arise, take up thy bed, and walk. Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto you. Can go down if you want to. I've been there and got the t-shirt. I don't want to go back. I'm ready to go up. I'm ready to be lifted up. I'm ready to stand up. As for me and my house, I don't know what you're going to do, but as for me and my house, as for me and my house, we're not going to go down to hell. We're going to go up to heaven. We're not going to go down to this world. We're going to go up to where God wants us to go. The alternative to a breakdown is a breakthrough. I know you're standing at the banks of the Red Sea and you don't understand what your next move is going to be, but don't have a breakdown. I know you're in the wilderness and you don't have anything to eat. You don't know how long it's going to take Domino's to deliver that pizza, but don't have a breakdown. I know they're threatening to throw you in a fiery furnace, but don't have a breakdown. I know, Daniel, they said they're going to feed you to the lions if you keep praying, and I know you're probably a little nervous, but please don't have a breakdown. I know, Elisha, it looks like you're outnumbered, but don't break down right now. I know, David, it looks like your family is stolen and the town is burned, but don't have a breakdown, because you're about to get back everything and some that the enemy has stolen. And some of you say, well, that's just old Bible stories. Well, let me get a little more personal. I know the doctor's report came back positive, but don't have a breakdown. I know the divorce papers have been filed, but don't have a breakdown. I know your kids are on drugs, but don't have a breakdown. I know you lost your job and you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, but don't have a breakdown. I know you filed bankruptcy and it looks like your credit is ruined, but don't have a breakdown. I'm not sure who I'm preaching to, but whoever it is, you're at a crossroads right now. You can either have a breakdown or you can have a breakthrough. You can either be handicapped or you can rise above your situation. Breakdown means you're going to be broken and go down. Breakthrough doesn't mean you're still not going to be broken. You see, that's the problem. We don't officially understand a breakthrough. You can't have a breakthrough without still having a break. But you're not going down. I know this is deep. You're going through. I'm not preaching about a break over, a break under, or a break around. I'm preaching about a true blue, 100%, without any doubt, no question about it, break through. In other words, whatever is blocking you, you will break it. And the breaking will give you the ability to go through it. You see, too many of us are trying to go over, around, and under what is in our way, but yet it seems to always be in the way. But today, we're not going to beat around the bush, and we're not going to try to find some cheap, easy way out. We're going to break through. We're going to deal with that stuff. All things are not going to be they're not going to be the same way they were when you came to church, because there's going to be a break. The Bible says in Exodus chapter 14 and verse 16, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. David said, yea, though I walk through the valley. You see, the devil thought the valley was going to give you a breakdown, but it's really just going to give you a breakthrough. The devil thought the Red Sea was going to give you a breakdown, but it's just really you're just going to go through it. And when God says you're going through, there's not a devil in hell that can stop it. There's not an enemy that can change it. There's not a demon that can, there's not a spirit. There's not a principality. There's not a witch. There's not a sinner. There's not a saint. There's not a drug dealer. There's not anything that can stop it. There's not a city council that can stop it. When God says you're going through, just go ahead and make up your mind. I'm going through. Somebody shout break. Micah chapter 2 verse 13. Bible says in Micah chapter 2 and verse 13 that the breaker is come up before them. They have broken up and have passed through the gate and are going out by it, and the king shall pass before them, and the Lord on the head of them. The breaker is come up before them. I feel like the spirit of a breaker is in the house today. I feel like somebody's going to break through today, and when you do, everything is going to change. It's not going to be like it used to be. Let me just prophesy and tell you, you can break that habit. You can break that generational curse. You can break that streak of depression. We're going to break it. We're going to break it. We're going to break it. If we will break through, God said, I will break forth. If you want God to break forth on your situation, you got to make up your mind not to break down. Not to break through. Somebody shout breakthrough. The Bible records a story in Mark chapter 2 about 4 men bringing one man who could not walk to Jesus. It always takes more people to bring one person to the church. Did you catch that? One man cannot bring a man that's in that condition to church. We got to get out of this mindset that we have to be the lone soul winner in the church. Why don't all of us just get together and do what we can do, and let's bring people to church? Where's Rocky at? I need my high heel tennis shoe. That went over like a high heel tennis shoe. I said that last week, and he texted me a picture of a high heel tennis shoe. We thank God for the ministry of Rocky. Amen. 4 men had to carry one man. Does it really matter at that point which 4 of those men got the credit for it? If we ever get this, this city is ours. Mark chapter 2 verse 3, and they came unto him bringing one sick of the palsy, which was born of 4, and when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was, and when they had broken it up. Before you can ever have a breakthrough, you're going to have to break up. And they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. They were willing to break through whatever it was that was stopping them from getting in the presence of the Lord. Most of us would have turned around and went home. We'll go back next week. Just wasn't our Sunday. Too many folks there for me. Preacher preached too long. Choir was off key. Air conditioner's too hot. Blah, blah, blah. Just didn't work. But no. They said, we're not going to put all this effort to get here.
Right.
And then not get in the presence of
Oh,
God.
God.
I don't know what all you had to fight to get here, but since you're here, I wouldn't let a little lid, I wouldn't let a roof, I wouldn't let a crowd, I wouldn't let somebody on your pew stop you from getting in the presence of Jesus. And when Jesus saw their willingness to break through some things, the Bible says it like this, when He saw their faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But that day they put faith on display. They said, okay, we're going to break up this roof so we can get down to where Jesus is. Jesus saw their willingness and their determination to have a breakthrough instead of a breakdown. If you want God to see your faith, you've got to be willing that nothing's going to stop me from getting what I came from church to get. Let's all stand. I'm preaching about the alternative to a breakdown. Now here's my text. Let's get back to it so I'll be a preacher. She'd been sick for 12 years. She had lost her family. She had lost her friends. She had lost her money. No doubt she had lost her hope. Listen, it's one thing to have a little ailment for a week. You sick for 2 weeks and the church is there with you. You sick for 4 weeks and your family's there with you. But you get sick for a year, you don't get as many flowers as you used to get. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's reality. And people that took off and took vacation and came and sat with you that first week and that second week, it's been 3 years now. They're moving on. They've got life. So can you imagine for 12 years? 12 years. 12 years. No doubt she's about to have a breakdown. Come on, I know the pressure. I feel it when things happen and you get one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. You're just like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. Am I the only one that's honest? I do not want to talk to anybody. I ain't picking up the phone. I'm not answering it. I don't care. Hush. I need quiet. You know, it's a breakdown. You just feel like, let one more person say something. I've been wanting to tell somebody off for a long time. You heard that saying, the straw that broke the camel's back? What would happen? What would happen if we just released the burden off the beast today? So the straw doesn't have to be what breaks you down. I don't know why God hasn't performed, and I don't know why God hasn't healed, and I don't know. I pray, yes. But I'm telling you, please, before you break down, just make your mind up that God, whether you heal me or not, I'm not quitting. Those 3 Hebrew children looked at that king and said, oh, king, understand this. Our God is able.
Yes, sir.
Oh, make no mistake about it. Our God is able. But if not, we're still not going to bend. We're still not going to bow. And they didn't know it at the time, but they weren't going to burn either. You've got to have both of those in your Christian bullets, arsenal. Our God is able. Our God is able. Our God is able. God is able to heal you. God's able to deliver you. God's able to help you. God's able. God's able. God's able. But then you got to also have the other side. But if not, I'm still going to love Him. But if not, I'm still going to praise Him. But if not, you don't have to break down today. You do not have to break down. You can have a breakthrough. I want you to lift your hands up all over this place. If you feel like there's just been pressure on you, if you feel like there's just been mounting pressures getting up on your life, Whatever it is, whatever the situation, you just feel like, oh God, I'm on the verge of a breakdown. I'm on the verge of being completely broken down. I want you to step out of where you are right now. The alternative to a breakdown is a breakthrough. You do not have to leave carrying the weight of the world. You do not have to leave waiting on that straw to break the back. You can cast all your care upon Him because He cares for you. You can come unto Him, all you that are labor and are heavy laden. Jesus said, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. My way is easy. My burden is light. Come on with your hands raised. If you feel like you just need help today, you just need God to give you strength. If you feel like you're about to spiritually snap, I want to tell you, you don't have to break down. You can break through. You don't have to live with regret. You don't have to live with remorse from yesterday. God can renew you. And God can restore you. God can help you today.